All right. Well, welcome everyone. As I said, this is year-end thank yous, donation premiums, and ask a raise. So today we're going to be talking about fundraising, and we're going to talk about year-end thank yous, which are a special type of donation acknowledgement that you can generate from within the system. And then we're also going to talk about donation premiums and ask a raise, which are two fundraising tools that come with the system that can help kind of take your fundraising to the next level. Premiums are benefits that people can get for donating to your organization. So if you offer some sort of incentive or tangible reward, such as a calendar or mugs or bumper stickers that people get for making a donation of a certain amount to your organization, then you can set that up in the system and identify what those items are. And then you can actually track and have the system track for you who has made a qualifying donation and is waiting to receive their premium. And then you can track whether or not you've sent that and whether or not it's been received. Ask arrays are kind of awesome. They are basically suggested ask amounts or tiered asks. Most commonly, you see this when you're doing a sponsorship and you send to your potential sponsors a list and say, if you give us a sponsorship of $250, you'll get your name on a table tent and in our program and on our website. And if you do a donation of $500, you'll get this. And if you do a sponsorship at $750, etc. Um, you also may see it and use it in your general donation asks to general donors. Give a donation of $5, $15, $25. Um, Oh, somebody's saying they can't hear me. Can you guys hear me?
I can.
Okay. All right, Aaron. So it sounds like the problem is on your end, Aaron. Hang on. Let's see. Okay. So hopefully Aaron can get that resolved. So ask arrays. So they are those tiered ask amounts or those suggested ask amounts where you're suggesting to the donor, you're not just leaving it open-ended. And you can configure those in the system, and you can actually configure them quite powerfully and dynamically. You can either do what we call fixed asks, which are, you suggest the set levels and everybody gets the same ask, or you can have the system dynamically suggest those ask amounts based on your donor's previous giving history. So to get started today, let's start with year-end thank yous because we're going to start by finishing up this fiscal year, right? We're going to do our year-end thank you letters. And then we'll turn to ask a raise and premiums as we look forward to next year's asks. So in your system, year-end thank yous, you can find those on your main menu under year-end thank yous. It's actually pretty easy to use the year-end thank yous. They are basically a template, and you have a few extra placeholders, but it's basically just a donation acknowledgement letter that instead of acknowledging one gift, it acknowledges all gifts that the donor gave you that year. So here you can see my setup or my configurations for my year-end thank you letters. The system's going to give you, it's going to default to a batch name, and you can change your batch name if you want. So I could just leave this, with the date, basically, it dumps the date in there, but you could call this, major donors year-end thank yous if you're kind of segmenting or doing different year-end thank yous. Then you're going to go ahead and you're going to select which year do you want to generate these thank yous for. So if I do for calendar year 2016, basically, so everybody who donated in 2016 will be in this batch. Now, I actually have 0 recipients because I have already generated this batch for this year. So I'm going to see if I have another year. There we go. So 2015, I have 3 people that didn't get a letter. And so you'll notice that's one thing right there. If you've already generated a year-end thank you for somebody, they're not going to be pulled into this again. You'll have to go into the batch history and you can trigger another letter from there, but you will not be able to get them to pull into this once you've already sent them a year-end thank you. The system marks them as done and won't let you select them again. That's good news because then you can't, accidentally send like 3 or 4 copies to the same person, but just be aware of that. So I'm going to go into my 2015 here. I've got 3 people that I had not previously sent a year-end thank you to. I can click on that and get the list of people, and I can see what their communication preferences are. Is it okay to send them emails or mail, and are they individuals or organizations? I could filter this list of recipients. If I had hundreds of recipients here, I can filter them as well. So once I kind of can see who's in here, I'm going to click close. I can refine this list by using the other search criteria here to filter. So I could, for instance, filter out anybody. If I only wanted to send print letters, I could go into their send mail preference is false. Yeah, would be anybody who doesn't want to get hard copy mail. So only people who want to get email. So let's say if I was trying to do a batch right now where I want letters that I will print out and mail to people, I could exclude anybody who doesn't want to get mail from this. And so if I put that criteria in and I search now I got no recipients. Nobody wanted to get mail. So that would exclude everybody from my batch. I could go in and I could remove this. And then I've got my recipients back in there again. So think of this when you're doing this. This is the same as the newsletter. This functions exactly the same as the newsletter, is that think of this as a funnel. You start up here with all of your donors who donated in 2015, and then this is going to funnel or reduce that base up batch. This is not additional people that you are adding to the list. This is people, kind of a subset of this list. So keep that in mind. But you can refine that list down. You could exclude people who live in a certain area or people who donated under a certain amount or whatever. And then you're going to go in and you're going to select your template. Now, under the communication preferences for manage templates, there is a special category for year-end thank yous because year-end thank yous have a couple of extra placeholders that regular donation letters do not have. I could have pre-configured my year-end thank you letter template prior to coming here and generating this batch, or I can do it from right here within the system. I can create a new template, or I could select an existing template, and I could go in and I could edit that template. If we go in and edit, just to show you guys, this is the standard template editor that you will have used to set up your newsletters, donation acknowledgments, etc. So here we have just our standard template editor as normal. But what you have in addition, the extra placeholders that you have for your year-end thank yous is this placeholder that's called a transaction grid. And what this is going to do is it gives you, let's see, where is it? Here it is. Under year-end thank yous, transaction grid. And we're going to drop that in. Actually, I don't want to drop that right there. I'm going to put that down a little bit. Basically, what this is it's a table that will include information on all of this donor's donations for this year. So I'm doing 2015. So if I drop that transaction grid in, oops, didn't save that. Try that again. All right. Where is it dropping that? Okay. For some reason, let me go back into that. It thinks I already dropped it in there. Anyways, the transaction grid is a table, and it's going to have the date of the transaction and the amount and what that donation was for, if it's earmarked for a particular program or campaign. There we go. All right, so that's the placeholder that you get for year-end thank yous that you don't get for regular donation acknowledgement templates. And then so you can drop that in, and then that will display as a table in those letters and customize that for this donor. So you can go through, you can customize this letter how you normally would, thank you for being a supporter. Here's your year-end tax receipt that includes all the donations that you've made to us this year for your tax purposes or whatever. You could make it flowery if you want, etc. The year-end thank you usually is sort of geared because it includes that transaction grid with the list of all of the donations is really kind of meant to be a roll-up receipt that you can send to your donor so that they have one letter that details all of their giving to you instead of having multiple letters that they have to compile and deliver to the IRS. We'll just save that change. And then we're back in here. And then once we've got this batch configured, we've given it a name, we've picked our template, we've picked the year, we've made sure we like our list of donors. What you're going to do is you're going to select generate. The system is going to work in the background. You're going to see that this is sent for processing, and it's going to generate an email that it will send to you and tell you when those letters are ready. Now, prior to starting this webinar, I had done my 2016 ones, and those say generated, so I should have an email. Anyways, it will email you and tell you your letters are done, and then you'll have a link to click to download those letters. You can also come here as well to go in, and you can view recipients, and then you can delete this whole batch if you wanted to. But I can go in and I can click on this title and I can see my letters as well, and I can print out any. And this is how you can also trigger a second copy to anybody that you need to resend this to, because as I said, if you go and create a new batch, that person won't appear because the system will already have marked them as sent. So now my previous batch, I can go in and I can see who got it by email, who got it by mail, and I can go in and trigger these. I can download another copy. I can print them out, download it as a doc, download it as a PDF, and then I could mark done printing. Any questions about year-end thank yous? Okay, well, that's year-end thank yous. Like I said, they're pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty easy to use, but it's a great feature that saves you a little time because of that transaction data grid there that will compile everything for you. So next, let's talk about premiums. I love premiums. I think premiums are great. You're going to find premiums in a couple of different places here. Under fundraising on the main menu is premium fulfillment. That's where you're going to go to see who is owed premiums and to track who has been sent their premiums and who's received their premiums. Under configurations is where you're going to set your premiums up. So we're going to go to configurations first. And this is where you're going to put in all those things that people get and what sort of triggers them getting it. Is it any donation amount, or is it a particular donation amount, like they only get the calendar if they donate $25 or more, etc. So on configurations, under fundraising, is premiums. And here's a list of my pre-configured premiums that I already have in my system. So I've got some chocolates and a bumper sticker and a calendar and a brick, rubber ducky if you're doing like one of those rubber ducky races, stainless steel coffee mug, teapot, etc. And you can put in and see the market value. I can edit any of these and I can delete any that I don't need anymore. If I want to add a new premium, I just click Add New Premium. As with everything else in the system, you need to give it a unique code. When I'm coding, I always just use my initials and then consecutive numbers, but you may have some internal coding system. You may match this perhaps to like a GL code or a general ledger code or something like that, or some other tracking or inventory system that you have. You're going to give a description. This is what will appear in the drop-down list. So this is actually, you want it to be short. You don't want it to be very long because it's going to appear in a drop-down list, but you want it to be descriptive enough that people know what it is. So I could call this maybe 2017. Maybe it's a special calendar, has pictures of cute animals on it. And I could indicate, what's the fair market value if you were going to sell this. How much would this calendar be worth? So I'm going to say it's $15. And you can even upload an image if you want. You just click, and then you can upload an image from your computer. And then you click Save. And that's all you need to do to pre-configure your premiums. Now, the other piece of this is called premium rules. Here's the rules for when people deserve premiums. So here are some rules that I've already set up. And you can see some of these, they require a minimum donation amount, or donations have to be made within a certain time frame in order to trigger this premium. I can edit and I can delete any of these rules, and I can add a new rule. I can go in and I can give this rule a name. So I could call this is there a minimum donation amount? So people only get this premium if they donate, $100 or more, or is it for any donor? Date range. If it doesn't matter when they donate, if any donation at any time is qualified, then you can leave this blank. Otherwise, if there's a particular period, if you're saying anybody who donates in the month of February gets a special calendar, then you would put in those dates and indicate those there. So I could, let's say, for the month of December, people are going to get my calendar here. You can assign a priority status to this of kind of how important it is, or the tiering of the premiums. So there may be, if you've got multiple premiums that somebody qualifies for, you can indicate sort of which one is like super important that they get to, down to, this is like a little add-on. The minimum amount you can set as $1. It is a required field, $1, unless there's a particular actual minimum that this incentive or premium triggers. And then if the donor will qualify for multiple premiums, so if they make a donation that crosses categories, so if, for instance, I have one premium that they get at $25 a mug, and I have another premium at $100, and they donate the $100, they qualify for the $100 item and the $25 item. So you may say, no, they don't get some of the lower level items. If they qualify for the $100 item, they don't get the $25 item as well. Or you can bundle those and say, yeah, they get the coffee mug and the calendar. And also, if this person donated $200, do they get 2 calendars or do they just get 1 calendar? And so you can indicate how many premiums each donor is allowed to receive when their donation crosses multiple premium categories or they qualify for more than 1 premium. You can elect what fund this is related to. So if people donate to a particular fund, that's when this premium comes into play. And then here I'm going to select my premium. So I have to pre-configure my list of premiums first before I can set up my rules. So this is my 2017 calendar. So they're going to get 1 calendar. I could change this quantity. I could say at $100 they get 2 calendars. I'm going to say they get 1 calendar if they donate $100. And I'm also going to go in and I'm going to say this is for my general fund. So now if they donate to my general fund and they donate at least $100 in the month of December, they're going to get a calendar. And I'm going to click Save. Any questions about configuring funds or setting those up? All right, so what does this look like in action? So now that you've got this configured, what happens when you make a record a donation? So I'm going to go in and I'm going to add a donation. And I'm going to go to my general fund because I linked that to my premium. And then my gift is in that month of December range. And then I'm going to make a donation of $101. Make sure it's right, it's above that $100. And then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to record how the payment was received. And that was today. And it was $101. And I'm going to save and close. Oh, I did pick a fund. There we go. Now, when the donor makes a donation that qualifies them for a premium, when you're entering this information on the back end, as you can see, a box will pop up and it'll say, hey, this person gets an incentive because they met the criteria. And then you can say whether or not the donor should get this. The donor may have said, no, I don't want it. It might be event tickets, right? If they donate $100 or more, they get a free event ticket. And they might be like, yeah, I live 1,000,000 miles from you. I'm never going to come to one of your events, so I opt not to receive my premium. So there could be cases where the donor doesn't want the premium, or maybe this is their third donation of the year and they've already received 2 of your calendars and they're like, I really don't want a third calendar. So you could say no premium, and then the system's going to do nothing. You could record a note as to why they've refused the premium, or they're not entitled, or you've opted not to give it to them. If they do want the premium, then you click for the premium, and then you're going to select the item that they're going to receive, how many that they're going to receive, and then you're going to say apply. Now, when you go to the premium fulfillment area on your main menu under fundraising, premium fulfillment, this person will show up as being queued up as someone who you now need to send them a premium. And here she is, Abby Jacks, for today's donation, and it's pending. So you can go in, and if you hover over opted premium here, you will actually see what she's going to get. So she's getting a calendar. Some of these prior donations we have here, this person's getting a bumper sticker, another bumper sticker, another bumper sticker, a lot of bumper stickers today. And then you're going to see the list of what you need to send. And these people are going to stay in here and be pending until somebody on your staff goes in and manually indicates that this person's status has changed. Either in process means it's in the mail or you're working on packing it. So my other statuses here, these are all in process. I don't think I have any that are, these are all in process. All right. So you can go in and indicate, we're in the process of boxing this up and mailing it, or getting it ready to go out. We've gotten it to go out. We've put it in the mail and it's en route or in transit, or it's arrived. So you can go in, and I'll just do that again because I did that quick, but next to each contact here, you can change status. You can go in and you can change this to in process. And again, in process means either like we're working on boxing it up, or it's gone out the door. And so if you change it to in process, if you're shipping and using a shipping tracking number, UPS or FedEx or the Postal Service, and you've paid for tracking, you can enter the tracking number here as well and the date that it was shipped. And then you can add a note. Then once this has been received, you can change it to fulfilled, meaning this person's all set, they've received their premium, we don't owe them anything else, take this off the list. Once you've changed this to fulfilled, change status, Abby disappeared, you'll notice. This comes off the list because you'll notice this tab is pending. These are all the pending ones. If you want to see the fulfilled ones, you need to go to the history tab. Going back to change status here, just to go over these last two, undelivered means exactly what it sounds like. For some reason, you have not delivered this person's premium. Maybe it got lost in transit, or you decided to, you're holding it for some reason and you're going to ship it at a later date, whatever. This is kind of they're owed a premium, but they didn't get one, basically, is what undelivered is. And that can mean whatever you mean it to mean on your end. No premium is we accidentally triggered them a premium and said they deserve a premium, and the person changed their mind and decided they didn't want it, or it was an accident and we should never have said they should get a premium. And you can set that to no premium. So that will not make it look like it's unfulfilled. It'll look like it'll take them out of the list of people who should have been on the list of getting premiums in the first place. Any questions about anything on the change status screen? Now you can also, so you can update all of these records one at a time by going into change status, but you can also select multiple records and you can change status as well. So you can update all of these people. So if you send all these bumper stickers out on the same day, then you could change them all to in process. Now you'll notice that if you're selecting multiples, you do not get the shipment date and you don't get the tracking number field. The reason for that is because all of these people live at different addresses and would have different tracking numbers, and so you cannot put that information in one record that's going to populate across multiple records for that reason. But if you just kind of want to mark that they went out the door or change it to in process, you can do that in the bulk update using the change status. You can also change status for all, and you can export these records. You can also indicate a rush order. So on these contacts that I've selected, I could indicate a rush order, and I can indicate here the date that they need to go out or that it did go out, any notes, and then I can go in and I can select particular contacts who are owed premiums, and I can select the premium to send them. So this is for people like if you messed up and I don't know, the donation didn't trigger right and they didn't show up on the list and you're trying to add them to the list and you're like, I got to get this out the door today. So you can go in and kind of manually make a list basically of premiums that you need to get submitted out. And then you can save and queue for fulfillment, which means they'll show up on that pending page, or you can consider as fulfilled. So you could enter these people right here what they're getting, and if you choose this, they're not going to show up on the pending, they're going to show up in that fulfillment history as, yep, we already sent them. So you could fill this out like after the fact, like after you've already sent them out the door, or if these are people that you want to send a premium to, that either you record the donation some other way, you didn't track it in your CRM, or you just, they're previous major donors and they haven't given you a qualifying donation within the date range, but they called up and say, hey, I want one of those cool calendars. And you're like, you can have a cool calendar because you donated $1,000 earlier this year. And even though we're running a special right now where you have to donate in the month of December, but because you're such a major donor, even if you don't give us money in December, we're still going to send you a calendar anyway. So that's what this rush order screen allows you to do. Any questions about that? Okay. And then finally, fulfillment history. This is where you can go in and you can see the list of people you have sent premiums to. You can go in and you can see here their status and what you sent them. And that's pretty much, and then you can, click here, and if you've recorded the shipment date, it'll show up and you'll see that basic information about the shipping and the notes. If there are, you entered a note, you'll be able to see that. And then this is a view only list. There's really nothing you can do here. You can't interact with these contacts at all in any way regarding their premiums. It's really just for you to be able to see that history. Now the standard sort is chronological by queued date, but you can toggle to these other tabs to see by premium rule. So for those people who had to make a donation in December that was $100 or more, for instance. So you'll be able to see them all grouped together. So you'll be able to see, okay, so these are all the people who got the teapot. And these are all the people who got, that general annual appeal incentive. It's what I just called that rule we had just created there. So you can see them grouped together by what they got, basically, and the qualifying donation that they made. Or you can sort by contact, so that if you want to see everything that one particular contact got in a year, you can see that as well. The same thing happens on the pending fulfillment list. You do have the 3 tabs for the different sorts. So if you want to make sure that Abby got everything she was owed all at once, instead of you send Abby one package, and then as you're going through your list, you find that Abby is like on the second page that she deserved another item, and you're like, darn it, I wish I had boxed them together instead of now I have to pay postage for 2 separate boxes. You can see this by contact, so you can make sure that to save some postage and boxing and packing materials, you can group your items together. Any questions about that? Or any questions?
I couldn't hear you there for a while, Terry.
Oh no. When did you lose me?
Oh, just a little while ago. It's okay, but I just wanted to let you know that you dropped off for a minute.
Okay. We're having all kinds of audio problems today.
I was able to hear you the whole time.
Okay. All right, good.
Good.
Who knows what this recording is going to sound like now? I may have to do this again. So any questions about premiums? Now, premiums will be triggered by people who donate through your website as well. It's not just back-end donations. I should make that clear. You'll get that box that pops up for you if you do the back-end that says should this person get their premium or not, but people who donate through the front end through Pages or Plugin, and their donation qualifies for a premium will get queued up as well. All right, then on to ask arrays. Ask arrays are pretty awesome. They're a little brain melting at first, but they're actually super awesome. Now, currently, ask arrays are only usable for front-end donation asks, basically, on the website. So if you're using Pages or a plugin or more web, ask arrays will populate to your website and present that ask. It'll show up here on the back end. You can see your ask array when you add a fixed ask array. And you can use them in the Appeals add-on. Now, Appeals is a paid add-on that allows you to use ask arrays, among other things, and configure these very complicated mailing packages for your donation asks and send those off to a mail house. Just send them the files automatically, basically, and you can create segmented mailing lists and get very complicated. So that's what ask arrays are for currently. Now, we do have a feature request into our team to be able to drop ask arrays into donation letters, into templates where it would pre-ask, but that is not currently a feature. So what are ask arrays? Now, as I said at the beginning, ask arrays are basically a suggested ask amount that you ask your donors. And there's two types of ask arrays. There's a fixed ask, and there's what we call a dynamic or configured ask array. A fixed one is where you suggest the tiers, right? It's set tiered amounts. And like I said, this is most often you see this for like scholarships, $250, $500, $750, or $1,000. That's what we call a fixed ask amount. Everybody gets the same amount. The tiers are the same. And it's just kind of across the board. The other kind, the dynamic or the computed ask array, is it suggests an ask amount to your donor based on their previous giving history. Now, you can ask for a fixed amount based on their previous giving history, or you can ask for a calculated or dynamic amount based on their previous giving history. And this is the part where it starts to melt your brain a little. So ask arrays, I think, are best explained with an illustration. So we'll just go in and we'll start configuring. And as we go through, if you have questions, just let me know. If I don't want to lose anybody as I start to get into this explanation. So we're going to configure our ask arrays by going to configurations, and then we're going to go down to fundraising, and we're going to go into ask arrays. Now you can also configure ask arrays when you're creating a fund. And actually, I'm going to back up. I'm going to do that to start with. I'm going to go into configurations, funds. And now funds, as hopefully you all know if you've been taking donations, and if you were a V1 client, this was called donation name. But fund basically means type of money or bank account, right? Most people can have one fund called general fund, which is for their unrestricted money. That goes into your general operating account, and it's unrestricted, and you can use it for anything. You may have other funds if you're taking in any kind of restricted money. If you're doing money that goes out directly to participants or clients or recipients, such as scholarships, stipends, wages, internship stipends, anything like that, you would probably create a separate fund for that because that money goes into a different bank account and it has different rules. And money given to those types of funds may or may not be 100% tax deductible. General funds, usually when you set those up, it's 100% tax deductible. You may have restricted funds for capital, for a building fund, for instance, or building acquisition and rehab, paving your parking lot, or buying equipment such as computers. Those are restricted funds. The money goes into a separate bank account, can't be touched except for those capital purchases, and again, may or may not be 100% tax deductible. And often we advise that if you are doing sponsorships for like an event, you will create a fund for that because you want to create those tiered asks or that fixed ask array. And so if we're here in funds and if we add a new fund, we're going to give our fund a code. and then we're going to give it a name, and I could call this my 2017 Annual Gala Sponsorships. And then I could indicate an end date, you know, of when this fund is in play. We're going to ignore this. That will take, this is for that, the ask array sort of, but basically, do you want donations made to this fund included in that prior giving history calculation? So sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, right? If it's to like a annual gala sponsorship, you probably, when you're asking them for a general cash ask during your annual appeal, you don't want sponsorships included in their previous giving history when calculating like their average amount given or their maximum amount given, because those sponsorships are sort of different, right? That usually even comes like organizations, it will come out of their marketing budget. It doesn't come out of like their community budget or their foundation money. Sponsorships come out like of a separate bank account, even for the organization. So you generally do not want that included in a general ask. But if this is just a general fund, then you may say, yes, include donations made to this fund in the calculation of their previous giving history, like the average amount or maximum. So then to set up the ask amount in this fund, so people who give a donation to this fund will get prompted with this ask array or this fixed asked amount or this suggested ask amount. And you can use a fixed ask or use an existing ask. And this existing ask, this is a list of my ask arrays that I have configured in the system. So we're going to start basic here. We're going to do a setup a fixed ask. So this is one of those where all the tiers are preset by you. And again, if we were doing a sponsorship, this would be pretty common. And you might have something that's like your bronze level. It might be friend of the organization level. It might be peewee level, like, you know, whatever descriptive names that you use for your levels. And what is the ask amount? So here at my bronze, maybe it's $250. How much of this is tax deductible? Now, again, if you're doing event sponsorships, 100% of that is probably not tax deductible because they're getting something for that, usually marketing, like their name on a banner or in a program guide or something like that. But they may also be getting event tickets or some other premium or perk. So just make sure you're aware of that and adjust these accordingly. I can add additional tiers by hitting the plus button. So now I can go in and I could do, let's see, what's usually after bronze, silver. And I could say that's $500. And then I could go in and I could add my gold level at $750. And then I'm going to go in and add my platinum level at $1,000. So this is my fixed ask amount here, where I've just put in the levels and that anybody now giving to this 2017 Annual Gala sponsorships will be presented with these ask levels. If I add a donation, I'm going to save this. And now if I went in and if I added a gift, that was my 2017 Annual Gala sponsorships, and I'm going to say it came in online. And then, as you can see, once I pick the fund, it pre-populates with those tiered asks. And now I can just click the little radio button next to the amount they gave. So setting up ask arrays can help you with your back-end data entry, because if you know everybody's going to be given one of these amounts because these were the only option that they were given, rather than you having just a text box where you have to type the amount every time, you can just click the little radio button next to the ask amount. So that's one way that ask arrays can help. Now the other is it can present these to people who are logging in, who put in their name and password into your website and log into their public profile. They'll get presented with the ask array when we're doing the configured or calculated ask arrays, which I'm going to show you next, which is the second way that these can help. Any questions about setting up this fixed ask array or setting them up while you're in a fund? And is everybody with me so far as to what an ask array is and why you'd want it? Okay, I'm going to go with silence equals consent, so I'm going to assume that's a yes. All right, so now let's get a little more complicated. So we're going to go back into configurations and under the fundraising category, and we're going to go into Ask a Raise. Now, when you're configuring Ask a Raise from the Ask a Raise screen, it's gonna look a little different. The interface looks a little different. And you can do it either way. So you could go into your fund and set up your tiered ask that way. But one of the things that it doesn't give you the option to set up there, you'll notice when I show you this, is have you ever gotten one of those asks, or even, let's go back to your sponsorship. Let me back up for a second. So you get your sponsorship letter and it says, if you give us $250, you get your name in the program book. And if you give us $500, you get your name in the program book and you get your name on our website. And if you give us $750, you get your name in the program book and on the website, and you get 5 minutes to make a speech at the event. And then if you get $1,000, you get all that stuff, and you get to have lunch with our executive director, whatever. The one thing that if you go in through the fund and you configure your Ask a Raise that way, it doesn't give you the option to indicate what they get in exchange for that donation, which you do get if you go into configure Ask a Raise. And you'll notice if when you were in the fund, it did say use an existing Ask Array. So I could configure my Ask a Raise here under configurations, fundraising, Ask a Raise, and then drop it into the fund. And then that way I would get that. This is what you get for that donation piece. So Ask Array. I'm going to create a new Ask Array. The Ask Array, when you're using this interface, going into the configurations Ask Arrays, is two parts. The first is the overall. Now, this assumes that you're asking people for money, that the amount that you're asking for is based on their previous giving history. When you go in this way, the other one, when you just go in through the fund there and create that fixed one, it's sort of just like everybody's getting the same thing. It doesn't matter what they previously gave. This interface is saying we assume your donors. This setup is much more for people who are giving through the website and are logging into a public profile, because it's assuming the system's going to know who these people are, and it's going to be able to compute based on their previous giving history. So this first page here is you're going to create ranges, right? And technically, when we did the previous one, we had ranges, right? $0 to $250 was $250 ask. People between $250 and $500 were the silver level, and they could give at the $500 level, etc. So those are giving ranges, right? So this is, first you got to give it a code. Give it a code here. And the description, and I could call this my annual Gallup 2017 Ask Array if I wanted. These ranges, when the system decides what range somebody is at based on their previous giving history, how do you want to compute that? So do you want to look at the donor's previous giving history and calculate the average amount, and then decide based on their average amount which of the tiers or levels they fall into to present them with the ask? Do you want to use the first amount of their first donation? Do you want to use the highest amount they've ever given you? So look at every single year and pick out which is the highest, and then based on that amount, put them into the correct range or category of giving. Their last or most recent gift amount. The most common or gift amount. So if they've given you $10, $15, $10, $10, $25, that would say $10. They've given you 3 gifts of 10, and the other 2 amounts only once each. Or this Olympic average. And an Olympic average is the average in which the highest and the lowest values have been tossed out. So this is a little more moderated. This average, if you've got a really high or a really low, and you've got a one-off one year, it will swing your average one way or the other. So Olympic average tosses out the high and low and averages the remaining values. So how do you want the system to compute their past giving history to decide what ask amounts they're being asked to give, or what range or category they fall into? Do you want to apply rounding? So after it does this computation, if it came out with $25.11, do you want to use $25.11, or do you want it to round up to $26, or round down to $25, or to the nearest into the nearest what? Whole dollar, nearest $5, nearest $10. So if I gave 25.11 and I said the nearest 10, it would round me up to 30. Culture, you can pick the currency basically is what this is kind of going after, but what country are most of your donors coming from? And then finally, is this ask array going to be used for acquisition? Acquisition means that all the people who are going to be presented with this have no giving history, that these are all first-time donors, and therefore the system has no information on them. In that case, it's going to act a little different. It's going to know that this is basically nothing. It's zero, and your ranges will be a little bit different. And is this a default ask? So is this sort of every new donation that doesn't have an ask array configured for the fund, is this then what it will use as your default ask? Any questions about this first page? And you can think of this first page as sort of the meta. Think of this is not the ask levels yet. This is still the meta of telling the system how to compute everything. So then we save and proceed. And now this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of setting up our ask. Now, I could go ahead and do that fixed ask array that we did through the fund for our sponsorship levels. The range are the tiers, basically. But these are the tiers of the donor's donation history, right? Or the category that they fall into. The system by default will populate 0, which means anybody who has no giving history or has never given you money, what ask will they get presented with? I can then, if I left this as 0, then everybody's going to get the same ask. Otherwise, I can go in and create additional ranges, and I could just type the amount, so I could say 100, and add. These ranges, these numbers that you put in here, form the base for the next tier. And by that I mean that anybody who's given between $0 to $100 is going to be given the 0 ask, whatever I put in here for ask to details. Anybody who gives between $100 and $250 previously, based on whether or not I'm computing by average, most common amount, highest amount, Olympic average, etc. Anybody who falls between 100 and 250 will get presented with this ask, whatever I put in here for the 100. And anybody who's given 250 or more in the past will get this ask. Once I set up my tiers or my levels, I can go in and I can make sure I'm selected on here, and I can go in and add ask details. I can have more than one ask per category. So for instance, when you send out like that sponsorship and say bronze level, silver level, gold level, platinum, that's 4 different tiers or 4 different asks, right? I could do the same thing. So I could say anybody who's given me under $100 in the past based on average giving, I could present them those same 4 levels, or I could give them 4 different levels or options. I could give them 1 option. I could give them 10 options. I could give them 100 options. So this is where it starts to get a little complicated, because now you're sort of mixing and matching, and you can get very complicated. You could have many ranges, and each range could have many asks. So for example, anybody who's given me less than $100, I could go in, and why did it do that? I want to be in this range. There we go. I can go in, and I can either do a fixed amount, calculated, or taxed. So let's start with fixed. So here we can say anybody's given less than $100, we can ask them for $100. And we can indicate how much of that is tax deductible. Now I could add another option. So I could say you can give me $100, or you could give me $250. And again, 100% tax deductible. And then I could say that anybody who's ever given me more than $100, I could say, give them a fixed, and I could say, well, if you've ever given me more than $100, I don't want to ask you for 100 because you've always given me more than that in the past. I want a stretch goal, right? I want to ask these people for more. So maybe their ask starts at $150, and then maybe their next category is $250. And I could give them more too. I could say, or maybe, hey, this goes up to $250. Maybe so this can include people who gave $249 in the past. I want to make sure I have a stretch goal for them too. So maybe $350. So when a donor whose past giving history is on average, because on this first tab I said average, who on average has given me between $100 and $250 previously, will be presented with this ask. They'll be asked to give $150, $250, or $350. But anybody who goes to my website and logs in, I have the worst time. I want to get my, okay. It ate my ask details, I think. Oh, because I think I didn't save it. I think you have to save it before you go off of this screen, I think is what I do every single time. There we go. Put those back, and I'm going to save that. There we go. And put these back. Okay. So like I said, we'll start with a little stretch goal there, and then we'll go up to 250, and then we will add 350. And make sure we save that. Okay, now I would save this. So anybody who goes to my website and logs into their public profile and has given between $0 and $100 previously will be asked to give either $100 or $250. But anybody who logs in and who previously on average has given between $100 and $250 will be asked to give $150, $250, or $350. So now you start to see, oh, these ask amounts are customized per each donor per their giving history. Any questions about that and about sort of what we're doing and why you'd want to do this? Is everybody still with me?
Yep.
Okay, so now we can get super cool, because not only do we have this fixed amount, we have a calculated option. So we could say, instead of us setting these goals, we could tell the system to calculate the ask amount. So people who gave between 100 and 250, their first option is going to be calculated, and it could be based on their average, their first gift amount, their highest gift amount, their most recent gift amount, their most common or frequently given amount, and that Olympic average, an average computed with the high and low tossed out. So I could say, okay, ask them for their average gift amount, or I could say average gift amount, maybe plus $50. Or I could multiply it. I could say, plus 30%, basically. So actually, that's 30% of their average gift amount. We probably wouldn't want to do that. That would be less than, let's see, I could take their first gift amount and then multiply it times, yeah, here we go, 1.3. There we go. Now it's 30% more. So you could tell it to calculate based on any of these ways of computing the base amount, and then you can either ask for that base amount or you can tack additional money onto it. And again, you can apply rounding to that. And you can also set a minimum and a maximum. So you can sort of push people towards the higher end of this tier, because 100 to 250 is a pretty big spectrum. And if you've got some people who are like 249 and you got other people that are at 101, you may want to set a minimum of $150 or $200 for this tier. So anybody who falls in this tier of giving previously has to give at least $200, or they take their first gift amount plus 30%, basically. So you can go through and you can set up one ask or multiple asks per category, and you can have the system do a fixed amount or calculated. I can mix and match. I could have one calculated amount, one fixed amount. And then you have this other option, which is text, which is basically it's going to give them a text box and they can write in their own amount, which is not very exciting. You probably want to at least have some other, either a fixed or a calculated ask as well. You don't want to just leave it up to people, especially if you're doing sort of donor cultivation and management, where you want to kind of present stretch asks and you want to push them a little bit. That's where these calculated amounts are really great, because you could take their most recent gift and then add 10% or add 20%, so that each time they're coming to your website to donate, they're being pushed to give a little bit more than they did previously. And this is how you can grow your donors. Now you'll notice the other option that we have here is this little checkbox, this gift provides. And this is what I was saying, that if you use the interface of setting up your ask array inside of the fund and you do a fixed ask array, you don't get this gift provides. And this gift provides is like, if you give us $10, it will feed and shelter a kitten for a week. And if you give us $50, that will feed and shelter a kitten for a month. So when you get that, this is what your money provides, and it's this many hours of mentoring, or this many meals to the hungry, or this many bags of kitten chow. You can set that up, and this will be presented to your donor as well through your donation page. And again, you can put text, which, text is you just type in a little description. Fixed is where you're going to go and you can put in as well, if you give me a donation of, so let's say if I do fixed, $150, then basically 100 of that goes towards direct services, and only $50 goes towards overhead or transaction fees or whatever. Or calculated, where you can say, for every $150, it's like, 95% goes to services, and they'll actually see that. So it will actually present a calculation, and my math doesn't go that high in my head, but whatever 95% of 150 is, they would see that. And then again, you could round that up or down or to the nearest 5 or 10 or whatever. So you can include that as well. And again, this is a checkbox. You can toggle it on or off. But if you want to include that, what are they getting for their money? And they can either see that as a dollar value, or via text, you can actually write a description of what it's buying. And you can present that for each of these ask levels, or each of these asks within each ask level. Any questions about any of those options, fixed or calculated, whether this gift provides? All right, well, that's pretty much it for today then. Any questions about anything I went over? That's it. But anyways, as always, we do have tutorials for premiums and ask arrays in our support library, which you can access through this support link. Take you to the support library. If you have any questions, you can email us at support@fundly.com. And as always, you can go to fundlyevent.com to see the list of all of our upcoming webinars. Thursday, I will be doing one on year-end reports that dazzle and amaze. We're going to be talking not so much about the nuts and bolts of how to write a basic report, but some of the fancy formatting and tools that exist in reporting to make your printed report that you are sending maybe to your board, printing out for a board meeting perhaps, and make them a little more attractive and easy to read. So we're going to be talking about adding charts and formatting and converting dates to spelled out dates instead of number dates, sorting by that, etc. And every Friday we have our drop-in help forums. So if you have any problems, you can always come and drop into our Fundly CRM forum. That's for both V1 and V2 clients, and then also our Fundly Connect forum on Fridays. As always, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to talking to you all again sometime. Thanks, guys.